Welcome back to Rogue Reviews. Thank you for joining with us after the madness of last time. We did Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space and it was a completely off-the-wall bonkers video. We hope you liked it. It was mad. There were lens flares everywhere. There was shifting focus. Sorry about that, by the way. It's sorted this time. And it was a thoroughly mad and insane experience, but hopefully a lot of good fun. Now today, you join us for a great game that we've had the privilege of adding to recently over Christmas. We've been playing in the last few months, and it is a treat for you. So, polish off your best bad Kevin Costner accents, feel the spirit of Alan Rickman imbue your soul, and get ready to answer the age-old question, why a spoon, cousin? Surely an axe or a knife? Yes, today we are playing Sheriff of Nottingham. So, Sheriff of Nottingham, it's a great game. If you've not got a game like this in your collection, this might well be worth checking out because it's a different type of way to play. Now, this has been designed by the absolutely amazing Sergio Halaban and Andre Zatz. What manner of name is this? Moorish? Well, we shall see. So, the idea is that you are taking it in turns to play as the eponymous hero or villain, the Sheriff of Nottingham. Now, the idea is people are trying to smuggle their goods bring their goods legally into Nottingham town, and you have been put in charge of extorting the heck out of people. Now, all the lovely villagers are trying to get their goods into market. And of course, there's certain things that are prescribed by law. For example, they're allowed to bring in chickens and bread and cheese and apples, and that's it. Unfortunately, Nottingham folk like the finer things in life as much as anybody, so they'd love to just smuggle in a bit of pepper or silk or ale or the occasional crossbow or two. Ah, good steal this. So the idea is that you need to try and sneak your goods in to make the maximum profit each turn. Of course, the sheriff also wants to line his pockets, so he or she is going to try and extort you into handing over some of your ill-gotten gains in order to pass a blind eye and let you through in order to make your own fortune. Now, you take it in turns being the sheriff. So the idea is that you've each in the position of basically extort or extortee. So you need to basically work out your moments. This is definitely a really bluffing heavy, psyching each other out kind of game. There's a certain amount of lying to your friends and your family. If you can cope with this, this is lovely. This is a game that I was aware of for quite a while, but didn't quite feel ready to buy for our family until I knew it was something that we could cope with. And it is a game that we absolutely love now. My daughter and my wife are ridiculously good at this game. They are fantastic at playing this. My son and I, we do our best. Well, we can't beat them in the bluffing stakes. So, this is a great game. The idea is that you can basically take into Nottingham on your turn a bag filled with goods. Now, in your lovely bag, and these components are gorgeous by the way, you can basically put in a number of cards that you can draw from the market. Now, as I've said, these could be legal goods, for example, apples, for example, lots of apples here, need to shuffle these better, for example, bread, or for example, where have we got some? Apparently all the bread and cheese in the world. Okay, so we've got bread, we have cheese, for example. So, you can nominate a number of cards between 1 and 5. And they have to be officially the same type. So you could go, I'm bringing 3 cheeses in this day, Sheriff, and I'd be definitely pleased if you would just let me get into town. Okay? Now, of course, it's up to you what you actually put in the bag. You have to be truthful about the number of cards you put in. There have to be 3 cards in here. Of course, they don't always have to be cheese. Now, if you've got a mixture of different cards, you could be worthwhile getting a few in. Of course, you don't want to do that though. What you want to try and sneak in is some contraband. Now, these are the lovely red cards, which are worth a bunch of points. You're going to try and sneak a few of these in your bag and basically make a lot of profit. Now, the sheriff is trying to catch out those people who are lying while trying to accept bribes and take as many people in as possible in order to make his own fortunes richer. Now, on your turn, what you can basically do is you can bring in goods and you will score those goods. When your turn is to be the sheriff, you're not making any goods of your own, so the only chance of really making profit and making a rise in the game is to basically extort the other players. Now, depending upon how you play, you might be able to lean on your players a little bit more or a little bit less, and this is a game where you have to find resilience among your players. We couldn't play this with our children when they were younger because that kind of like pushing and lying in negotiation, yeah, it didn't always lead to good feelings. So that's why we kind of waited until we knew they'd have a better sort of like personality that would cope with it. And we are so proud of them, basically how well they're kind of resilient, and they take it in a good period of laughs. So going on from this, you want to take in some goods, you want to get them past the sheriff. Now, you play as one of the 5 different characters. You could be a baker, you could be an Alan, you could be a brewer, etc. And each turn you nominate your goods. Now, you start off with a certain amount of cards in your hand. These might be fantastic, these might not be fantastic. So you have a chance to basically swap the cards around before you declare what you're bringing in. Now, this is done quite well. The idea is there's a central pack of cards here that you can draw from. Now, you can draw face down from these cards, or you can basically draw from the face up cards that have been discarded. Now, you can't basically reach down to choose exactly the ones that you want, so you're going to be a bit more sneaky about this. Right. All in all, there's a lot going on here, and it's a really great experience. Let's take a closer look at the table view. So let's take a closer look at Sheriff of Nottingham. Now, the first thing that jumps out at you when you see this game is just how gorgeous it is. The attention to detail in the art, the theme, the palette, it's been done so well. When I came to design my own game, Merchants of Infinity, what I wanted to look for was something that basically used colour, used shape, used form, used characters really well, and this was a huge inspiration for that. The detail on the art, it's all fitting in the theme of this idea of this medieval England, medieval Sheriff of Nottingham type thing. It just does it so well. So let's look at some of the more details of the cards. These are the market cards representing a bag of goods. So say, for example, you could have chickens. Fantastic, lovely. Chickens by themselves are worth 4 points. If you're caught with them, however, which we'll go into a little bit, they cost you 2. Now, bread, fantastic bread here, is worth 3. Cheese is also worth 3. And apples, more plentiful, are worth 2. Now, there's a few different balancing mechanics, which we'll go into a little bit more detail when we talk about scoring. But the idea so far is those are your legally allowed goods. Your illegal goods, your contraband, range from pepper, worth 6, mead, worth 7, silk, worth 8, and the occasional crossbow, worth 9. There are also some special extra goods, some royal goods they're called, which add things a little bit more complicated. They're kind of basic goods, and yet they count as contraband. Now, those are especially good, but I would recommend them for a little bit more experienced players. So say, for example, you could have blue cheese. Now, blue cheese counts as cheese. It actually counts as, where are we? It actually counts as 3 cheese at the end of the game, but it is contraband, okay? You might have green apples that count as 2 apples. You might have Gouda that counts as 2 cheese. You might have pumpernickel bread that counts as 3 bread, and so on. So you can also have a royal rooster. There are also some absolutely amazing promo cards for this game. Now, we haven't been lucky enough to actually get a full set of them, but we'd love to keep collecting. So if you happen to have Sheriff of Nottingham, have some bonus cards you don't need lying around, yes, please send them through. Okay, so between all these goods, you must put together a bag. And as I said before, these bags are lovely. Little popping in and gorgeous, fantastic quality in terms of components here. So you choose and you put in. Now, realistically, you've really got to know your players, okay? If you know basically they're going to be a little bit more lenient to let you get away with more things, you can afford to kind of load up your bag with more goods and start pushing the limit. Now, when it comes to bribing the sheriff or not to let you in, you need to basically work out what they will and will, or she will and will not allow. If your sheriff knows that basically this is their opportunity to make some money, they need to basically work out whether it's better to kind of squeeze you for a few coins or risk exposing you and have you pay the penalties. And this is where the scoring comes in. Let's say, for example, you said you were going to bring in 3 chickens, Sheriff. I've desperately got a big hankering for chicken pie, Sheriff. You see, I adore chicken pie, and it's just my wife's favourite dish ever, and she wouldn't forgive me if I basically was late with these delicious chickens. I'm sure you'll let me in, won't you, Sheriff? You get the idea. So, you basically put this in your bag. Yes, you have 2 chickens, but oh, look, a crossbow fell in there. Oh dear, what a shame. So, you obviously want to have this crossbow because it's worth lots of points. So you basically make a big song and dance about it, put it in your bag, and just to encourage the sheriff to kind of just speed you on. You might say, now, Sheriff, I'm really in a hurry. If you could maybe accept this like donation, Sheriff, to the Public City Works, then I'm sure we'll just not take up any more of your valuable time. Now you get the idea. The sheriff can basically choose to let you through and take the bribe. You don't have to bribe them, but if they take the bribe, then you go through and you collect your goods. So basically you take your honourable goods and put them behind the respective area of your board. So, for example, 2 chickens would go here. Meanwhile, your naughty, naughty, naughty contraband would just be tucked behind here. And as you basically go on, you sort of gather more goods. There are actually rewards at the end of the game for whoever has the most of these goods, the king reward, and the second most, the queen reward. So say, for example, chickens, which are worth 4 points each. Whoever has the most chickens at the end of the game gets a bonus 10 points, second gets a bonus 5. Whereas composed to apples, apples by themselves are worth less, but the bonus for having the most apples is actually more. So it's a nice little balancing mechanic there. Now, your goods go through, fantastic, lovely, lovely, you're all done. But let's imagine the sheriff's not quite that easy to get past. 5 gold, you say. Oh, I'm sure I think I need a little bit more persuading than that. Oh, okay, well, maybe 6 gold, Sheriff? No, no. Do you know what? I'm just going to leave you there. I'm going to come back to you. So what have you brought into town? And then you can pass around and ask the players and leave you to stew in your own juices for a little while. If the sheriff comes back to you and basically says, nope, I'm sorry, I'm opening your bag. Take your coins, keep them, I don't want anything to do with them. Show me what you've got. Then unfortunately, you must basically bring out and basically reveal your goods. Now, let's imagine you had, as we said before, 2 chickens and a crossbow. Now, you're allowed to take chickens in, and you said you were taking chickens in. So you would actually still get to score these 2 as normal. However, this is contraband goods. It will actually cost you 4 gold. You'll have to pay the sheriff 4 gold, and you don't get to keep it anyway. Oh dear, I'm sorry, thank you for playing. So basically you've lost out on quite a lot here. So it becomes a question of how much would you be willing to pay to make sure these goods get in, and that depends on your game. Sometimes you might want to bid like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or sometimes it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Depending on how thrifty your players are, this will definitely change the feel of the game. If you want to be utterly ridiculous and try and bring in 3 or 4 pepper, however, you might want to make sure that the sheriff definitely lets you in. So this is kind of the situation where basically how the feel of the game goes depends on your particular family setup, or friend setup, of course. So each turn you basically choose the goods that you want from here to replenish your market and replenish your cards, and the game goes on. Now, let's say, for example, that I wanted, let's have an example, I really, really want a card that's down here. I really want that cheese, okay? Now, at the beginning of the market, I can't just rootle do 3s and take that cheese. No, 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 no. I would have to take all the cards above it in order to get that cheese, which basically means that the other players know what you're taking. So, for example, if you happen to take, oh, I've got a silk and a pepper and a bread, and then next turn you basically go, 4 cheese, Sheriff, they're going to know that you're lying, okay? So it's very, very all about the sneakiness that you can bring to the game. So let's have a look at some of the other components and see what there is to be found in this game to be enjoyed. Okay, so now we're thinking a little bit more about the different characters you can play. Obviously the colours are here. We've got green, we've got purple, we've got red, we've got yellow, we've got blue, and depending upon who you are, that adds a certain little spice to your game. For example, the cheese merchant. Oh, such joy to be had in cheese. Then, of course, you have the bakers, the brewers, and all manner of other people here. Now, of course, if you are basically the hunter bringing in crossbows into town, people might wonder what legal goods you could bring in. Equally, if you are a brewer and you start bringing in cheese, your story might be a little bit salubrious there. So, the question is, how are you going to build this identity for yourself? And it really brings out the joy of this game in terms of the role-playing, the character drama. Those people who love acting, who love drama, will thrive on this game. Absolutely thrive. So if you think of yourself as a particularly creative person, you love this game if you can cope with that little bit of pressure. So, in terms of how the money works in the game, you're kind of dealt out your wealth at the start of the game, similar to 5 Tribes, really. And therefore, the money that you basically retain and spend thereafter will, of course, determine how well you do. Now, everyone basically starts off by being given 50 gold in a variety of little denominations. You've got 1, 5, 20, and 50. Of course, the more you bribe the sheriff with, the less gold you have. So by the end of the game, you might actually run out of cash completely. This is not very, very good. So the best players are the ones who can kind of bribe the sheriff with as little as possible and therefore retain as much of their riches, while at the same time managing to make huge profits. Now the question is how to play the game, and that's also different as well depending upon what kind of person you are. You could do absolutely fabulously in this game, bringing in nothing but the goods that you're actually supposed to. So say, for example, if on one turn you decide to bring in 4 apples, then you can do so with utmost confidence, because you know that if the sheriff searches your bag, he's actually going to have to pay you. And that's another thing. If you're basically caught telling the truth in the game and the sheriff searches your bag, he has to pay you the penalty as well. So not only would you basically get to collect your 4 apples, but you'd also get 8 gold off the sheriff, which is a brilliant trick and incredibly mean. So it's going to all be down in terms of what kind of game you put together. Let's say that you're relying heavily on contraband to basically make your way in the world. Well, then you're going to have to be leaning on bribes a little bit more, or be an incredibly good character study. If you're going to play a more honest game, then you can afford to switch things up and down, but it really will depend on whether you have the cards or not. Now, if you've been dealt a wonderful collection of cards, you can definitely make your way in the world absolutely fine. Oh look, I happen to get dealt 3 cheese this turn, and then next turn I happen to be dealt 3 bread. Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. And if I can just pick up another cheese here, now I've got 4 cheese. Oh, 5 cheese, absolutely wonderful. You get the idea. So the people who get just the right cards are in a very, very enviable position. And that's the random element to the game. You don't know what's coming up. Now, if you choose to basically draw up your cards from the centre deck of the market, you don't know what's coming either. And again, depending upon whether you're more leaning towards legal play or illicit play, your therefore strategy is a bit more revealed. If people can see that you're picking up contraband all the time, and yet you're not throwing any away, they know you're going to be smuggling stuff in. However, if you make a big deal of discarding the contraband, I don't need this pepper, I've got all the cheese that I need, well then that tells us more information as well. However, maybe you aren't getting rid of all of your pepper, maybe just something like to make into a little bag of cheese somewhere. You get the idea. So there is a wealth of opportunities here in terms of different types of strategy play. There is always this element of kind of face-to-face bluffing and negotiation, and there's layer effects to it. You can basically either prove to kind of overbluff or bluff or etc. So if you like that kind of game, oh, you're going to have fun here. Okay, we've enjoyed the base game. We've had lots of good fun. Is that all you got to offer me? Well, actually, no, because there is an expansion pack. The Merryman Expansion pack added a whole lot more to the game. For a start, you could bring in a 6th player, a sweet and innocent nun. She wouldn't be smuggling anything now, would she? Okay, so as well as your 6th player and the lovely black bag, what else have we got? Well, we bring in some lore cards that we can introduce. The way that lore card works is basically each day, the sheriff basically announces a new law that has to be passed. These are kind of like random events that can affect things. So, for example, this turn, chickens are considered contraband. No chickens this turn. Okay, or for example, let's have a look. The sheriff's private stash. Each time the sheriff catches a smuggler, they may keep any one good from the bag, even a legal good, instead of being paid. So these kind of spice things up a little bit and add a lot of sort of different random elements to the game. It could basically help the players, it could penalise the players, it could help the sheriff, it could penalise the sheriff. There's lots there. So that's fantastic. What else? Well, there could be special orders. Now, special orders are quite clever because they introduce a mixture of goods, which is basically some contraband goods and some legal goods. So to fulfill this, you will basically have to bring in, for example, a cheese and a mead. If you do so, you get a bonus 5 points, or some bread and some pepper, a bonus 6 points, or some chicken and some silk, a bonus 4 points. So you're still getting the goods anyway. These are just additional bonus points you can basically have to make things a little bit more interesting for you. Well, what else is there? Well, it's called the Merryman Expansion. What about the Merry Men? So, there are a whole collection of wonderful merry men. For example, Will Scarlet, that you can basically add in to your bag because he's disguised as a sack of goods. Now, these are basically trying to get in and out of Nottingham and cause all manner of mischief. Now, there are some obvious ones. For example, Will Scarlet. Maid Marian, Little John, Robin Hood and Friar Tuck, and you get the idea. And there are a few extra ones as well, which may have come from the mind of the creator or maybe certain backers. Let's see, we have Jill Stutely, who's worth a wonderful 10 points. Or we could have David of Doncaster, who has an absolutely splendid name. Now, similar to the contraband, obviously, if these are brought in, they gain you lots and lots of victory points. However, also, if they're basically found, then you lose points as well. Now, generally with these, the higher that the initial gold value is, the less the associated reward and special effects will be. Or the lower it is, the greater power their special effect will be. And again, there are good balancing mechanics here. So there are some fantastic ideas. For example, this basically lets you steal a contraband card at random from any player's merchant stand and place it in your own contraband pile. Friar Tuck lets you steal one legal good from any player's merchant stand and place it into yours. Jill lets you you must give 2 gold to a non-sheriff, non-deputy player. So basically, it's almost a penalty to have her because she's worth so many points there. As you can see, these make things a lot of fun. Now, the way that happens is basically these are always hanging out in Nottingham. And you must, well, not you must, but you basically start the game with a Merryman in your pack. So it means your hand size now goes up from 5 to 6. Whenever you successfully bring in a Merryman into town, you therefore can basically collect another one to add to your hand. If, however, you are caught, the Merrymen don't trust you, and you must prove your worth by smuggling in some contraband successfully into Nottingham before they'll actually trust you again. Good fun there. Now, what else? Well, there is the black market. Now, the black market is kind of a set collection element that adds to the game as well. What happens here is that you basically have to collect in 3 of a contraband. Now, for example, you need to be the first player to collect and declare 3 silk. If you are the first player to do this, you get a whopping 34 points. So you trade in the silk that you would have got for 8 points each, and you get a 34 point bonus instead. Of course, you can do this again, but it's 31 points. You could do this again, and the points go up again. So the idea is the sheriff and the people in charge basically get used to the fact that you're smuggling things in and the reward gets less. But still, it's a huge reward, because when you think of that 3 silk would normally be worth 24 points, whether you get 31 or 34, it's still great and still an absolute bonus. So they're good as well. Okay, so what's next? Well, as well as the other things in play, you've also got the idea of the deputy cards. Now, in this version of the game, what you basically have is the player who is in charge of the sheriff, there's the nun again, is actually replaced by 2 deputies. So in other words, instead of one person making all the calls, you're going to have a team of 2 people. This can be really interesting for a larger game, especially one which now has 6 players to contend with. So the idea is there are 2 people chosen at random who are the deputies each round. Now the idea is that they can work together to basically control goods in and out of Nottingham. If they decide to claim and search your bag, they can basically keep any naughty goods here. If they take money and bribes from you, the 2 players share. However, they can also act separately. Let's imagine that this player has decided that absolutely fine, you can come into Nottingham, no worries at all. However, this person goes, no, absolutely, I'm going to search their bag. Well, whatever bribe they have is rejected, and this person takes it on their own shoulders and their own responsibility to see what's inside the bag. If anything dodgy is there, they can claim the just rewards themselves. If, however, the person was telling the truth, this player must actually pay them back out of their own pocket. The other person isn't involved. So it kind of adds another element to the game. Do you want to work together? Do you want to work separately? Are you a team? How sneaky can you be? And it adds an extra dimension. So when you consider all that this basically adds to the game from one expansion, it is absolutely tremendous in terms of the value that you are getting and the extra replayability it adds to your experience. Obviously, it would be a bit too much to play all of these at once. I would recommend a maximum of 2 of these expansions at a time, not counting the 6 player, of course. So it basically means that you can try out the game in different ways in different situations. Now, bearing that in mind as well, your experience is going to be completely different depending upon who's playing with you, what kind of mood they're in, it's going to be a game that you can come back to now even more again and again and again. So you've got bluffing, you've got strategy, you've got set collection, you've basically got extortion, you've got all kinds of things going on, as well as that you've got resource management, because basically you're trying to basically the person at the end of the game in charge of whatever it is. You can bribe the sheriff with money, you can bribe the sheriff with extra cards, you can bribe the sheriff with, well, I won't search your bag next time, or will I? So there is a huge amount there to play with and enjoy. I think it's about time we sum things up in the final thoughts. So what do we think of Sheriff of Nottingham? Well, in our house, this has been a game that gives us great joy, great tension, and a lot of laughs. You have to be the right kind of frame of mind to play this game. You can't just pick it up depending on what mood you're in. If you're in a bit of a tense emotional mood, this is not a game for you, probably, unless it's a certain amount of venting that you need to take care of. This is a game that is basically, at its heart, carefree, light, but also charmingly sneaky, filled with treachery, you might say. So, the idea here is it's going to be a game where there's lots of face-to-face contact, lots of talking, bluffing, negotiation. You need to basically know how long to play this game for, because if you push it too long, people are going to start getting a bit cranky with you, or the game will basically spiral out of control. However, there is a great game here to enjoy and to play. Why would you like this? So, it's right as fun, it's sneaky, there's little bits of backstabbing here and there. There's certainly a little bit of take that mechanic and outsmarting someone, and that question really of, if you think someone is lying, do you basically push them for more money and try and get something out of it, or do you expose them for the no good person that they are and reap the rewards, both good and bad? Now, strategy wise, we have seen a huge range of things here, depending upon whether you play a very, very sneaky game or whether you play a very, very righteous game and get all the bonuses for right goods. There can be a huge amount of bonuses on offer, especially if you play a shorter game. The bonuses do seem to be a lot more powerful. If you play a longer game, well, then the person with the most contraband will most likely win. It's definitely worth playing a varied game as well. There are the 4 main standard goods, and basically you want to be able to be within a chance of at least getting the king or queen reward for some of these, because the people who tend to win the game are the ones who kind of pick up the king reward there and the queen reward there and the queen reward there and a pile of contraband, and that adds up to a good winning score. It's like when we were playing 7 Wonders the first time. If people narrow in on one strategy, they're going to be beaten sooner or later by the people who play the wider field. Same really with games like, can't remember it now, not Kingsburg, but in terms of the games where there are multiple victory conditions. We had 7 Wonders, we had 5 tribes, that's what I was looking for. So in terms of the wide appeal of this, you need to be doing a few different things. So if you play the expansion, yes, you do want to be doing some Merrymen because they're a huge source of points. Yes, you do want to be doing the black market because basically then you can get extra bonus points. Yes, you do want to be trying to get these combinations because in addition to all the points you're getting anyway, they're an extra advantage in terms of helping you win the game. So, as you can tell, we've been really impressed by this game. As I say, my wife really loves it, my daughter really loves it, my son really loves it. It's kind of like do you want to play Sheriff of Nottingham? How am I feeling? Yes, you've got to kind of check on this one from experience. But if you're in a good mood and you've got a little bit of give and take in personality on that day, it can be a barrel of laughs. Barrel of mead. So I would definitely recommend playing this first and checking out the experience that you have before you buy it for yourself, because that will really tell you whether it's a game for you. Okay, so Sheriff of Nottingham, definitely an interesting experience to have. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with us, as ever, you can reach us at rogueartistcreations.com. You can find us on Facebook at Rogue Artist Creations. Our Twitter handle is at RogueACreations. You can reach me at gmfirst at rogueartistcreations.com. Thank you very, very much for joining us for one of our Rogue reviews. We're hoping to be producing these on a regular basis and hoping to gather some more people to us. So please definitely subscribe. Please share these videos. If you see something that you like, if you see something that makes you laugh, especially the weirdness from last time, pass it on to the people and see if this is the kind of thing that they'd be interested in seeing more of. If you've got any pointers for us, yes, please give us some advice. I would love to hear some more ideas. We've started changing and adapting new bits based on feedback from you. So please help us to be better. Now, from now, I leave you with the answer, because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more. And now we say goodbye.